Hey guys, my name is VaulSC. Hope that you're having a good week. In this video, we're going to take a look at Conquest, the Last Argument of Kings, a battle report between the Dweghom, the dwarves, and Old Dominion, the undead. Two of my favorite factions in this game. It'll be a 2,000 point game on the mission head-to-head. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip through the report. Really fun game. Totally enjoyed it. It had a bit of an anticlimactic ending, so I'm going to spend a fair bit of time at the end of this video doing the rant stuff, talking about game balance, talking about this and that. So just letting you know, the video is essentially going to be in two parts. There's going to be the battle report, which you guys have come to know and love, and of course the more in-depth analysis stuff. Some people like that, some people don't. So we'll get there when we get there. But let's just dive in the meantime and see what we can see. So head-to-head is this mission where you have your home zone on the left. That is this little zone here. And you can only score from your opponent's one, and they're trying to do the same to you. But you're both going towards this large zone on your right, which is a really long way away from these other two, mind you. And you get 3 per turn that you score this one, and 4 per turn if you grab the one on the end there. But then there's 2 points for enemy warlord, enemy character, and enemy regiment. So you can also like win just by sort of keeping it fairly even, but mopping up your opponent by the end and winning on materials. So that's the way it works. Very simple scenario, and a great one for new players, I might add. So my list is pretty cool. I've already played this one once. You guys saw this the other day on Tabletop Simulator, but I have made a little bit of a change here. So the Tempered Sorcerer, I really kind of like him in this patch because Ferric Embrace, the Supremacy, allows you to heal a wound for every elemental potency marker you use, up to 3. So what you do is you are constantly picking up like 3 at a time, and what can happen is, because most of your stands have 5 wounds each, even if you lose a stand at the end, if the next stand hasn't taken any damage, then the 3 wounds will count towards more than half on the stand that you're healing back, so you can bring a stand back, if that makes sense. So it is a very good ability for the attrition game, and what we're going to be doing here is, of course, we're going to be maximizing that by taking 1, 2, 3, 4 characters that are all spellcasters, right? The main difference with this list is I'm trying out Earth School, and I had a good think about it, and at baseline, what you want to be doing is just casting Rock Shaping, which just, gives Unit Tenacious, even though it's not going to use it, because the whole point is just to continue building up those tokens, because you get 1 every time you cast a spell. So if you can move on in turn 1, cast a spell, move on in turn 2, cast a spell with your characters, and then just hang out for a bit, turns 3 and 4, just banking them up. By the time you reach combat, you'll have a nice big pool where you can really influence combats in your favor. So there is an argument for just going straight for Magma School, which generally is better, and I think that is the right choice when you've got a Tempered Sorcerer Warlord to, first of all, cast the Magma spell where you've got a piece of terrain, so like creating your own little pool of magma with Magmatic Seep, and then both of the remaining spells go Pyroclast. So your Warlord casts this, and then it casts Pyroclast through the template, then your next Sorcerer casts that through the template. That's where Magma is very, very good. With Earth School, I'm really just trying to delay the game long enough to get more value out of my healing. So with Roots of Stone, what you can then do is you can cast it on your own regiment that has not activated yet, as long as it's in position and is not planning on moving. +2 defense could be huge, but you can cast it on an enemy unit as well, which is very sneaky, because if you win the roll and cast it on them, they may have an ultra powerful unit that just can't actually move on to a zone or attack you. Broken Ground is also a hilarious one, because it says can't perform impact hits on its next charge, so it doesn't actually expire at the end of that turn. So you could cast it on a massive unit of Knights or Cataphractoi or Thunder Riders, and like, even if they just move around for the next couple of turns, they're just not going to do any impact hits at all. And range 14 is kind of nice. So these spells can be kind of clutch, but I'm not sold on whether this really is the right choice. Maybe just Magma is straight up better. And I've got focused on this Ardent Kerawegh just because sometimes he wants to cast this spell here, which stops them from seizing enemy zones, and it's got scaling, so if you're casting it on a massive unit of Praetorian Guards or Gilded Legion or something, having focus can be kind of nice. It is an expensive ability though, so that's the one thing I feel like switching out of my list next. Possibly putting it on the Steelshaper, because he sometimes wants to cast this spell and make armor in a clutch situation, so I'm not sure who needs it most. Right, over to my opponent's list. He's playing a Fallen Divinity. The Fallen Divinity has become stronger, not just because it's individually been buffed by a little move increase. The thing that makes it more powerful is that the rest of the army arrives quicker to support it, so that you're not just left out there by your own sort of fending for yourself with your low-tier Fallen Divinity. But secondarily, you've got Legionnaires and stuff pumping up the Dark Power in a more efficient way by getting them onto the table as well. And I believe a few other things in the list have changed, but I'll deal more with the changes to Old Dominion at the end of this bat rep. So Kanephors are your basic choice here because they don't really rely on Memories of Old very much. The thing about the Fallen Divinity is she uses all of the Dark Power, so you aren't going to be at tier 2 of the normal Dark Power pool. It's going to be in the Fallen Divinity's own pool, allowing her to reach tier 2 and 3. Which is why my opponent, you know, admittedly, and he said as much to me when we played, he said that he's trying out a suboptimal list, and the reason why it's suboptimal is the Archimandrite doesn't really belong in the Fallen Divinity list, and we say that because the Bone Golems are really what you want to be taking. They really do benefit from the Memories of Old. Having extra Aura of Death is really, really nice. Even Praetorian Guard benefit from it. And then you've got the Hierodeacon. So Cultists get him on really early for a little bit more of Dark Supplication, and your standard Legionnaires, which everybody needs. But realistically, a more optimal version of this army list looks a little bit more like this, where you've got your one Hierodeacon and a couple of Legionnaires, and then either 2 Kanephors or 2 Bucephaloi. The Bucephaloi are really cool. Arguably, the Kanephors are just straight up better because they've got Blessed and Flawless Strikes, and the Bucephaloi, even though they've got Cleave 3, well, Blessed and 5 attacks, etc., kind of makes up for it. So 4 Kanephors is not a bad choice, and then for your next warband, you take something like a Strategos, 1 more Legionnaires, and the Praetorian Guard, and you just do the straight standard thing where you've got the Strategos with From the Front. I can't believe this is actually a thing, but it is, and he gives it to these guys. They then take the Profane Reliquary, and he takes the Legio Primigenia, which is the basic thing that you always want to do. Eternal Discipline is really, really nice there as well. We've gone over points a little bit, but you could always just take out maybe Aura of Malice if you really wanted to, or drop one, or downgrade one of these guys. But you can see how this sort of setup relies a lot less on having Dark Power tier 2 from the main pool, and allows the Fallen Divinity to do a thing while supporting her and defending her really, really well. Cool, on to this bat rep. So showing up on a Wednesday night, was it Tuesday night? And I'm on the left-hand side there with my Dweghom assembled, and my opponent setting up on the other side there. I've also printed out a few new AI-generated artworks for the cards that I don't own, like the Sorcerer and the Tempered Steelshaper. Sorry, the Tempered Steelshaper and the Steelshaper and the Tempered Sorcerer is what I'm trying to say. Anyhow, starting off here, I'm choosing the Sorcerer who's in the Ballistae to come on first because I want the Ballistae to move onto the table, allowing the Sorcerer to cast a spell turn 1, putting Tenacious on them, but more importantly, generating an Elemental Potency token. I'm going to be calling them cheating tokens for the rest of this bat rep because that's what I prefer to them as. Flame Berserkers are my new choice here. I was hoping he'd run Carries because they're very good against Carries being resolves 5 on these guys, and they are very good at trading with and beating up on other light units, so I'm enjoying them being on my list. I think in the long run, if you want to do better with Dweghom, it's probably better to swap them out for more Hellbringer Drakes and stuff like that, but you never know which way the meta winds are blowing. So here they are. Also got a 3D printed Sorcerer there in amongst the little crossbowmen. He's using these carries to represent Acolytes. He's proxying them, and the Strategos is representing another Hierodeacon as a proxy there. So, of course, the Sorcerer does put down Rock Shaping. I've printed out these little spell cards as well. They're looking really, really nifty, just because this list has so many status spells that I just want to keep track of where they are. I'm using a deck of cards. I do collect a lot of really wonderful playing cards from companies like Theory 11. And I'm using that to represent how many tokens I have. So Ace is 1, and then I've got cards being laid down for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. So the Hierodeacon casts his Dark Supplication to grant more Dark Power. The Flame Berserkers are charging directly towards them. In a couple of turns, I'll hopefully be able to land some blows on the face of that Hierodeacon and shut him up, as it were. So quite a lot of units coming on turn 2 because my entire remainder of my army is mediums. I didn't get the Inferno Automata in turn 1, and I also failed the roll on turn 2 for them, so they're very late. But what's going to be happening here is we're going to go for the Sorcerer first to cast the spell, and then the Initiates bring on the Ardent Kerawegh. He casts a spell. You can sort of see the trend here. You know, Hellbringer comes on, the Sorcerer casts a spell, and we're going to try and get up to 4 tokens. So this is the position of the board at the start of turn 2. The Initiates coming on the left-hand flank. So if you just have a quick look here, this is the larger 4.5-inch diameter that we get 3 points each from. I am going to be going for the small one to get 4 points from his side while defending this one over here. So the Initiates are going to go this way, and then everything else is going to try and tackle the Old Dominion on this right-hand flank, if that makes sense. So there's the Initiates rolling up there. We also have Rancor, which is a spell that he gets for free when he casts it on his own unit, which is really helpful for this kind of strategy because the idea is that you're just generating elemental potency tokens. So spells automatically successful when targeting a friendly infantry regiment with a devout special rule, which, you know, he gives them anyway, so a great combo. So we have the Hierodeacon appearing here with a bunch of Legionnaires. One thing I might not have mentioned to you is that this is just a guess of what he was running based on my conversation with him, but I believe he was using the Legionnaires with the Dark Cenotaph. So some of them might have had an Optio, some of them might have had this, but an extra power token if you're seizing the objective zone. This is just yet another way of getting the Fallen Divinity up to the tier 2, 3 as quickly as possible before committing it. But he's specifically using the flank rule to not bring on the Fallen Divinity, which I found questionable. Like, if your strategy is purely to generate, like, 2 dark power a turn with the Hierodeacons plus 1 from the faction ability, and then secure some zones with the Legionnaires with the Cenotaph, and then also let them die to generate even more dark power, you should bring in your Fallen Divinity turn 1 and aim it directly towards the nearest enemy trooper and basically sacrifice it if your strat is that, because you're going to get to tier 2 so fast, it's likely to benefit from the healing. Your opponent has to sacrifice even more stuff killing it. If they can't kill it, they lose, and to me that's just a much better way to play it. So we have the whole Ballistae here, just setting up to be in a position where if the Legionnaires keep moving forward, I should be able to aim and shoot at them. If I really want to, I can move in to contest the zone, but I don't really want to do that. I want something else to come in and do that. These guys are just going to sit on the hill for the rest of the game and shoot. So here comes the Hellbringer Drake in a position where it can't be charged because the crossbows are screening, and the Sorcerer on top of the Drake could potentially put Roots of Stone on somebody, such as the enemy unit or the Ballistae in front of it. But he can also march out onto the objective if I really want to, and that would put me in a position where I can actually put the Roots of Stone onto the Drake. So I've got a few options here, and this is why I'm starting to feel like the Earth School is quite a cool one. So the Berserkers now activate last. My opponent's run out of cards, so I double march here where I'll be in range, and this means that if I win the roll, I should just be able to charge him and just put that entire unit to sleep. Okay, so this is an overview here, starting in turn 3. Note the Fallen Divinity up here. That is not actually in play. He's just, like, storing it there to bring on later. It is not on the table officially. That is not actually its position. So you can see here that the Initiates are going to slowly roll up the left-hand side. The Flame Berserkers in the middle are going to be going after the Acolytes right out of the gate, and then I'm just going to be waiting for some reinforcements to try and contest this zone over here. And as you can see from my little card pile, that's 4 tokens, which I can use for saving the lives of the dwarves and healing the back. So turn 3, first card is the Flame Berserkers, because if I win the roll, I just want to charge the Acolytes, to be honest. And then the final card is the Hellbringer Drake, because I want it to be able to potentially rush onto the objective if it needs to, but if it doesn't need to, I don't really want to have committed it needlessly. So everything else in between is just spells, effectively. And we've finally got the Automata coming on. Okay, so the Flame Berserkers do charge, and unfortunately they're going through a forest, but pumping out 19 attacks on Clash 3. The Acolytes do take resolve checks, but unfortunately the dice don't quite go my way, and also he's got Lethal Demise, so it didn't really wipe them out here. It took them down to 2 stands, and I've lost a stand as well, so actually I think this picture was taken before he'd taken his resolve checks, but he did keep the unit alive. We also have the whole Ballistae activating, and they're going to be shooting some Legionnaires from long range, although not doing particularly much damage. We have the Sorcerer on top here, putting Tenacious or Roots of Stone on them, or whatever he needs to do. We have some Legionnaires showing up opposite the Initiates, and these guys are going to be camping here and defending his home base head-to-head zone. On the other flank, he's using his reinforcement line, and I think this is the one regiment that has the Optios for the Vanguard. So they're rushing in here and just getting a bit closer where they can potentially move and engage the Ballistae, which would be great for him because then he can just move on to the zone, start scoring early, and I've just got to chew through Legionnaires, and that's going to give him dark power, and he'll set the reinforcement line for the Fallen Divinity once he's wiped out the Flame Berserkers. Mind you, I must say, if you look carefully at this picture, there's an image up here where the Flame Berserkers have actually now nailed the Acolytes. They've been killed from something there. I can't quite remember what really happened there, but they did die. And then we move on to the Initiates just rolling up. This is a double march straight into the middle of the table. I'm hoping that he overcommits to his home base here, meaning that I can hopefully just, like, even if I don't grab a zone, if these guys could just tank in the middle and use the tokens, if he's overcommitted to the side of the table, I might have a chance of scoring more on the other side. So we then have the Praetorians double marching onto the table to take on the Flame Berserkers. The Flame Berserkers do really want to just retreat and not face these guys because they're not going to be very good against the heavy armor here. But that Archimandrite is now in a position to cast his fireball or his dark blasphemous thingy onto these guys and nail them because they've actually taken a few wounds on that next stand. Steelshaper moving onto the table with the Fireforged. The optimal position for these guys to be in really is next to the Initiates, because what you really want is the Initiates to act as an anvil, locking the enemy in combat so you can shoot into the flank, hopefully ignoring shields, hopefully getting into short range, and just devastating things. And it gives the Steelshaper a chance to put -1 defense on the things that the Initiates are fighting, or even hardened onto the Initiates. So it's a really, really good combo. So I always go for this sort of style of deployment. There's the Archimandrite there, just blasting these Berserkers, so they will take some more wounds and then turn around and run away later. We have the Inferno Automata using the reinforcement line to rush onto the table here in front of these Legionnaires, and that will help me to protect the Ballistae. The Automata should beat up the Legionnaires in the long run, especially with the help of Earth School spells like Tenacious and Roots of Stone. So this should really help me just really beat him up in the next turn or two with the shooting plus the screening from these guys in the Aura of Death. So what he decides to do here is he decides to double march onto the zone, and this is an interesting play because it means that he's not using the Memories of Old from the Legionnaires, which looks like this. It's basically command stand counts as +2 stands. So realistically, if we look closely, this is the middle of the zone here, and it has a radius of approximately 4.5 inches, which is around there. So he's got these stands in range of the objective, which is 3, and he will start scoring unless I can march something into contest. But the Hellbringer Drake might have something to say about that. So over here, the Steelforged move through. I'm just going to try and continue committing to the side of the table. I like their position because it means that they could later on charge into the Legionnaires with their flux-powered ability to get Clash 5, so more impact hits. And it's going to allow the guns here to continue shooting for a while. And these guys will help protect them once the Praetorian Guards come closer. I don't mind fighting against the Praetorian Guards with these guys. The Praetorians don't actually have Aura of Death, and these guys should be able to last a while, especially with the advantage of the healing ability from the Steelshaper supremacy. Having said that, we have some Bone Golems now, which would be a problem for the Steelforged. And in fact, Bone Golems, possibly the strongest thing in Old Dominion at the moment. They're very, very strong for a lot of different reasons. I'll go into that a bit more later. But even just 3 of them are a problem. If you take a list with 2 units of 5, which is, very much affordable and doable, there are a few things in the game that can realistically deal with that, so they are scary. So, despite that, making the play here to march charge with the Drake and charging into the Legionnaires here, doing a little bit of damage with impact hits, but the thinking behind this is that, first of all, every time you activate this guy, his draw event gives him a token. So even though he doesn't use it, fighting in a different method, which is in close combat, does allow you to charge them up and shoot a massive volley later on. The Legionnaires are unlikely to do much damage to this beast because of the tokens I've accumulated and because I can get Tenacious and Roots of Stone on him from this position. He's now tanking the objective, and although we are tied here, in future turns I may actually be able to start scoring once I start killing these stands. So it sets me up for a pretty bold position. We finally have the Fallen Divinity coming on at the very last turn that it is able to. It has to come on this turn with flank. So it marches as far as it possibly can. And my opponent just opting for the absolute corner. He's playing it so defensively, and I think that he's just sort of scared of losing it. But I think the deficiency in that play is that there's nothing in my army that can really kill it. Even if I focus on it with a lot of shooting, it's got, you know, evasion 3, it's got reroll 6s, it can get tenacious later on, it's going to heal once he inevitably goes up to tier 2, which is not far off. He's generating 1 dark power every turn, plus another one from the Hierodeacon, and he's about to lose Legionnaires, so just the reserved way and the conservative way this Fallen Divinity has been played feels like I actually have a chance this game. The way I'd be playing it is just to rush it up like midfield turn 1 and allow it to die if the other person just focuses it with everything. Because you can lose the Fallen Divinity and still win. It's very much a thing because there's so much other stuff in your list which can do damage, and they'll be at an advantage if the opponent has traded with the Fallen Divinity for sure. But as it is, this is turn 3. He's coming on the side. He won't be in combat until around about turn 5, so I can at least stave it off for a while. And I might even be able to get Roots of Stone onto it, preventing it from charging at some point, which would be really nice. So this is the look going into turn 4. And you can sort of see the position. Things are going to be going very slowly on the left. He's going to have to commit one of the units of Kanephors to the left, and then hopefully I can clog them up with the Initiates while the Fireforged shoot them. You can't see the Fireforged here, but they are obviously on the map, like over this position here. So yeah, even with Kanephors appearing here and here, what I can then do is turn the Initiates in and just shoot at them from the flank with these guys, and I've even got some Hold Warriors showing up. The Flame Berserkers are going to need to run away from the Archimandrite, and then I've got all of these units just to try and hold him for a while. I'm feeling like if he brings one unit of Kanephors on here, then I'll actually take this area, and I'll be scoring 4 points to his 3, and hopefully win that way. But if he brings in both units of Kanephors, I'll have an easier time slowing him down here, and I might even beat both units of Kanephors in the long run if I get enough shooting on them. And I've got 8 tokens, so that's going to allow me to survive a bit longer on both fronts. With that in mind, I'm just activating the Tempered Sorcerer first, so that he can just put Roots of Stone on his own Drake. Then it's just basically all of the spellcasters, and the Inferno Automata last, because I'm expecting them to get charged, and they don't really need to change their position at this point. I just need more spells to go off. So, managing to get the Sorcerer off here with the Roots of Stone onto himself, meaning the Legionnaires really aren't going to do much damage. So that's a really good look. It's defense 5 effectively on the Drake. We have the Archimandrite activating and unfortunately casting a spell onto the Flame Berserkers, which eliminates them before I can run off. So they then march into the forest here, the Praetorian Guards, slowly entering the combat, so I'm going to have to find a way to deal with them. The Automata have had Rock Shaping cast onto them, because we're expecting them to take some damage, so that's a free token being added, and these guys have Tenacious now, which is nice. The Hierodeacon attempting to cast Dark Supplication. We learned something here, because apparently when you cast Dark Supplication, the range of the spell is self. And apparently that means that if you cast it on the unit, you can still turn a failed roll into a success. I would have thought that you actually have to target a unit for that, but I think the wording for it is contained in range self. It's when you go and look up that section of the rules. But it seemed a bit unintuitive to me, but that's apparently how it works, so he managed to get some more power before he gets wrecked. The Legionnaires themselves are reforming and then casting their Memories of Vulnerability without attacking. And he does that because I'm defense 5. He knows he's not going to get any damage done, but he can make it harder for me to score by using this thing here. The Memories of Old +2 stands for the command stand. Alright, so we have some guys attacking the Inferno Automata, but not doing too much damage. We do have a few tokens to use as well as Tenacious, so burning a couple tokens to deflect some hits and heal me some wounds back. Really nice. The Steelshaper now, just putting in some spells of his own, just needlessly putting like Hone Blades or whatever they don't need just for the extra tokens. We then have the Legionnaires just hanging out here, pulling back or moving forward or whatever they need to do, not really much going on. Hold Warriors showing up. I didn't really know where to put them, and I feel like the only use they're going to be is sort of shielding this unit of Fireforged. The idea being is that if he brings the Kanephors on here, which I'm expecting him to, and rolls down the flank, these guys can move in the way, and the Kanephors are size 2, so the Fireforged could then shoot over top of the Hold Warriors at the Brutes. And that might allow me to do some more damage before he gets into combat. Like, if he gets the Kanephors into combat with these guys, then that's a real problem. But maybe the Hold Warriors can screen for a little bit, especially with the help of those tokens. So these are Caryatids, but he's using them to proxy as Kanephors, because Caryatids, they really do need the help of the Dark Power pool for +1 barrage and fluid formation, whereas the Kanephors, they don't really need flawless strikes as much, and once they're in close combat, since they can't inspire anyway, they may as well use flawless strikes naturally, so they don't need the Dark Power, which is why these guys are Kanephors rather than Caryatids. These guys are now in position where next turn I could charge him if I really want to, or march charge, and just trying to really force the conflict here and just really get the fight started so that the Fireforged can then start shooting into the fight. But, of course, he brings in the actual unit of Kanephors to the left here, causing me a little bit of a problem, because if the second unit comes in the flank, that might be too many attacks going into me all at the same time, so I kind of need to choose between committing here and just shooting at the other unit, or reforming a bit and just like forcing him to come at me with one row of them at a time. Alright, over here, Hold Warriors, Hold Ballistae, just shooting a few shots into the Legionnaires, picking off a couple more wounds without doing too much. Bone Golems trying to get into range of the objective, but they are blocked by the back of the Legionnaires, so bad timing for them. They're going to be stuck for a while, and this is exactly what I love against Old Dominion. Just stopping them from getting their early pressure onto you, delaying them for a while, not killing too much stuff, not as much Dark Power. You get a chance to score. I'm building up my tokens, so that's going quite well. And then it means that the Steelforged can march charge into the Legionnaires, still do 6 impact hits at Clash 5. And what's going to be happening, if you look carefully at the top left of the photograph here, the Praetorian Guards are wanting to enter in, and this sort of helps to protect the flank of the Hellbringer Drake here. And with the Sorcerer being so close, I could potentially get some spells onto the Steelshapers, Steelforged unit, allowing them to deal with the enemy units more effectively, or at least survive. So Fallen Divinity, again, a bit slow here, but just marching around trying to get a flank charge set up against the Automata. So if she kills 1 unit per turn, or 1 unit every 2 turns, that's not the end of the world. Time has been ticking by without me taking too much loss, so not too worried. Over here, Fireforged moving onto the hill. They're doing that because if they're all touching the hill, they can then use it to shoot over. So if he does bring those Kanephors into combat with my initiates, he'll be in range for me to absolutely blast them by aiming and volleying. Over here, we have the Steelshaper, keep on calling me Steelshaper, Tempered Sorcerer, and the Drake, attacking in close combat, doing a bunch of damage to the Legionnaires, which should allow me to start scoring, because I'll have the Steelforged in range now. Over here, the Automata reforming and doing some damage to the Legionnaires. They'll also take some Aura of Death damage. The Fallen Divinity is about to charge them, but just trying to withdraw a bit of value from them first. Okay, so my very first card is going to be the Steelforged, because he's almost lost his Legionnaires that are in front of the Hellbringer Drake. If I activate now and attack, that's 1 base in contact with 2 supports, so 6 attacks at Clash 5. He's got like 2 wounds left, so they get wiped out, and then I can charge the Golems and block them. The Golems are very unlikely to be the first card, allowing me to then activate the Steelshaper later and actually put Roots of Stone on them and eventually stave them off the objective. So I'm going to score for at least a couple more turns, putting me well into the lead. So this is the look at the table at approximately turn 5, I think it is. So let's talk through it. I'm not really comfortable about the situation up the top left here. It probably would have been better if I just sort of angled, expecting this a bit better, so he has to come in with 1 unit at a time while I shoot him. And these guys, unfortunately, a little bit out of position. They kind of need to overtake the Fireforged. So not a great position, but I do have 9 tokens, so these guys should be able to use those tokens to survive for a while. Over here, if I win the roll, the Legionnaires in combat here are going to die, the Steelforged are going to charge the Golems, and then I can use my spells like Roots of Stone to really block that off. Over here, he's still at tier 1, the Fallen Divinity is going to chop through this after a while, but I'm going to be scoring here for another couple of turns. He is going to eventually overwhelm me, but it gives me a chance to win on the left-hand front, maybe, or even just score so much on this side that he can't catch up. So, yeah, there's a possibility here. Alright, Fallen Divinity now charges through. Funnily enough, I've got so many tokens built up that I can actually block a lot of her damage, even though these guys are saving on 1s. Meaning that she doesn't wipe the unit out immediately. So I decided to blow a lot of tokens. I wasn't sure if this was the right play because I still need the tokens against the Kanephors on the other side of the table. But I decided to try it, and that allowed the Automata to stay alive against the Fallen Divinity, no less, which buys me a ton of time. We then have the Steelforged bashing the Legionnaires as predicted, wiping them out, and then charging the Golems as we predicted, doing another 6 impact hits at Clash 5. And then I can put Roots of Stone on them. Over here, we have the Praetorian Guards charging in, but unfortunately for him, he can't get that many stands in frontage. So these guys are Clash 2. They lose Inspired going through the forest. I'm Armor 4. I've got a bunch of tokens to use. So the Steelforged don't really die to this at all. 2 wounds inflicted on the side there, so that's looking funny. We then have the March Charge from the Initiates. This was a bit of a questionable play from me. I could have just reformed, and I think I probably should have reformed so that he can't charge me from the flank and just sort of slowed this down. But by March Charging, it denies him the impact hits, it denies him Inspired. I've got plenty of tokens to use, and it locks this unit down, and it also threatens for me to score here, because if I've got enough stands in range of the zone, which is like right underneath the Kanephors, I might pick up a sneaky 4 objective points, which would put me really, really far into the lead. So I decided to try this play. It does result in the Kanephors charging to the flank here. This sets me up perfectly to blast them with the Steelshaper next turn and even put -1 defense on them, which is beautiful. I forgot they have evasion too, so it wouldn't have really mattered, but unfortunately, no shields to the side here. They do have Iron Discipline, which is really nice, so they don't have to re-roll a failed morale checks, and they have decent morale, but it does cause me to burn through a few more tokens and lose a bunch of stands. So yeah, I feel like this play was a little bit questionable for me, but you can also still see a bit of an argument for it. Alright, so we've got 4 stands left plus the guy, and I can potentially heal some after that. Over here, the Sorcerer putting Roots of Stone onto the Steelforged, which is going to be amazing because the Bone Golems are going right after this. So it's going from defense 4 to 6, and he will cut me back down to 4 with the cleave. So that is hilarious. Over here, the Legionnaires taking some damage from Aura of Death against the Automata here, but knocking out these guys with the shooting in a moment will generate some more dark power. We have Roots of Stone on the Steelforged, as you can see here, and a bit of a conflict erupts. I can't remember whether it was this particular turn, but there was one turn where the Golems attacked. Like, they rolled 12 dice at Clash 2, or it might have been a bonus because of the Fallen Divinity being at Tier 2. Anyway, they rolled 15 to 18 attacks, something like that, and he rolled like 6 1s, generating another 6 hits from Relentless Blows. But because my armor saves had come from 6 down to 4, I also rolled really, really well and took like 2 wounds, which then got healed up from the tokens. And they did pretty much no damage, which was really hilarious. But that's mostly thanks to Roots of Stone. It is kind of a useful spell. I still don't know if Magma's better, but you guys can let me know what you think. Over here, the Initiates are just trying to deal with the front Kanephors attacking them now, but the front Kanephors don't do as much damage because I've got the benefit of the shields and the morale, etc. And yeah, I managed to survive this, luckily. So there we are, the Bone Golem's attacking, and they don't do any damage to the Steelforged, primarily because of dice rolls, and primarily because also of Roots of Stone, giving them +2 armor. Alright, the Fireforged now. So the Steelshaper casts -1 defense onto the Kanephors, and then they absolutely blast the Kanephors by like aiming and following, and they wipe out 1 stand. Unfortunately, you know, evasion 2 on the undead makes it painful, but we are getting somewhere. So unmake armor, and then they are blasted. The Archimandrite decides not to bother firing the spell against the Steelforged because they are armor 6. So he just casts something else. God knows what he ends up bothering doing. Over here, the Hold Warrior is just getting a position to overtake the Fireforged and then march past them to basically act as a screen. We have the Legionnaires. Now, this is a really cool play. He does manage to use Memories of Old to give them +2 stands, and this is what prevents me from scoring here. And I'd forgotten that they could do that. Otherwise, I would have had enough stands in range of the objective to actually capture it. But that sort of locks me out of the 4 points I'd really gone in there to grab. So maybe I should have stayed back with the initiates. Over here, we've got the crossbows just blasting the remaining Legionnaires and getting rid of them. The Hellbringer Drake is able to now shoot, which is hilarious because he's built up 2 tokens, overcharged tokens from the draw event, and he's been in combat. So the guys have been meticulously and studiously building up steam on the guns, and then it shoots at the Bone Golems point blank, half range with like 3 tokens, but the rolling is terrible and I only do a few wounds to them, so that was a bit of a letdown, unfortunately. Alright, so this is the end of the turn. I think we're at turn 6 now. So as you can see, the initiate's just not doing as well as I hoped. What I was really hoping is that these guys would like last longer so I could shoot at the Kanephors for longer with the Fireforged, and eventually get the Hold Warriors in to do some cleanup, and maybe in the very end of the game score some points there. It's looking now like this isn't going to be possible. I've run out of tokens, and he probably will kill the initiates in the next turn. So the Fireforged will get a lot more shots onto these guys. It's going to take him a long time to get past them to this, but it looks like I'm not going to be able to get into his zone after all. In the middle, if I keep casting Roots of Stone, these guys are just going to survive forever, and I'm continuing to score 3 points a turn with the Steelforged and the Drake. Unfortunately, the Fallen Divinity is going to beat these guys up very shortly and then turn around and deal with these guys. So I've only got a few more turns left before he starts scoring that, so not looking great. So going with the Sorcerer first so I can try and get Roots of Stone. I activate him first. He tries to cast it, but he whiffs it, and I think it's because of spell interference being not nearby. It's normally on 3s. He's got 7 dice. He needs 2 successes. It goes down to 2s. He fails, 6 of them, so it doesn't really go off. So that's unfortunate. So a waste of me winning the roll, unfortunately. The Kanephors activating over here and doing a fair bit of damage to the initiates, blocking a little bit of it with the elemental token, but yeah, not looking great. They do have 2 stands left, and they can still use flawless strikes. We also have the front guys going in there, and I've only got a couple of stands left, so the front guys eventually managed to murder me. Yeah, the initiates also have a chance to attack back, but yeah, they're not lasting too long. We can punish them a little bit with the Fireforged here by aiming and shooting and killing another stand of Kanephors, but again, because of that evasion 2, couldn't quite really get through them with the AP2. Over here, the Bone Golems going after the Steelforged, but this time I'm still rolling very, very well with them. I'm still using tokens, if I have any, and healing back a little bit, so it's still going to take them longer to crunch through. We have the Hellbringer Drake shooting at them again, doing even more damage. He's like lost 1 stand already. When the Fallen Divinity activates, these guys will also take damage, so they'll take damage when they're in range of the Fallen Divinity at tier 3. So there is that also. Archimandrite, again, can't do too much. Yeah, still in combat here with the Steelforged. Steelforged have 2 stands, but they're weathering the storm. We have the Praetorian Guards trying to kill them as well, but again, they don't have Inspired. They're Clash 2. They have no Cleave. Steelforged are Defense 4, so a really great defensive unit. Over here, we have some more magic going off with the Steelshaper, and the crossbows, they don't even bother shooting the full Divinity. They can't do anything to it. It's tier 3 at this point. It's got Tenacious. It's rerolling 6s. Armor 4 with Hardened 2, so we're not doing anything to that. Speaking of Fallen Divinity, it is able to bash up the Inferno Automata. Even with Roots of Stone, they aren't going to survive for too long against that massive fiend over there. So that's that. So the Ballistae we're going to be shooting in at the Bone Golems, all two of them that were able to get into range of that. Now, on this side of the table, I have lost my initiate, so his Legionnaires are pulling past here. This becomes a bit more of a problem because these guys are able to screen a bit more effectively and threaten to tie me up in close combat here. And once these two units eventually get around to dealing with that, and the Legionnaires break through the Hold Warriors, which they should do because he's got Terrifying and he doesn't take Resolve checks, and he's able to beat these guys up who are only Clash 2. He may be able to move past me onto the objective zone. Cool, so Steelforged attacking. They have sustained 4 wounds onto this middle stand, but they're still kicking. And I've decided to march up with the Hold Warriors here. This gives me the opportunity to charge Clash next turn to do a bit of damage in advance to these guys, and just buy the Fireforged a bit more time to keep shooting, because if that goes really, really well, I get a little bit of luck, I could actually kill the Kanephors, and then the Fireforged could beat the Legionnaires, and I could have a couple of turns right at the end of the game scoring his objective, which would give me the win. So it's possible. So my first activation in this card here, this is turn 7, is going to be the Hold Warriors, because if I win the roll, they can charge the Legionnaires. They can maybe kill one stand, and then I can keep shooting with the Steelshaper and the Fireforged and win that way. So that's the plan. This is turn number 7. Let's just swing the table around. So let's go through it. If I win the roll, the Hold Warriors are going to charge there. It blocks off the Kanephors from getting past, which is a great play. These guys can then move up and blast this one stand. Gives me only 2 Kanephors left to deal with, and I might be able to do it. In the middle, the Fallen Divinity is about to charge this thing, kill it, and that will mean that he's going to start scoring. These guys are going to need to run away, otherwise they're going to concede points, and I will eventually lose the Steelforged. So, sadly, I lost the roll. Sad, sad, sad. And the Kanephors activate. They move through the Legionnaires to attack the Hold Warriors. This is terrible for me because it means that the Kanephors are going to easily survive against the Hold Warriors. The other Kanephor can move past and tie up the Fireforged, and the Legionnaires threaten to just march past onto my objective. So there you go. The Hold Warriors are reduced to just 1 stand. I'm able to do a bit of shooting from my Fireforged eventually, but we've got the Fallen Divinity marching, just charging straight into this guy. Due to some terrible rolling on his part, he didn't actually kill it. He reduced it to like 2 wounds, which I thought was hilarious, but it didn't really matter. The Legionnaires activating and just marching like sideways to get out of the way. So they just march over to here, and once he loses 1 more stand of Kanephors, he'll actually be able to march past them, and you can see in the distance there, in glowing lights, that is my objective. He'll get 4 points for scoring once he double marches down there a couple of times, giving him a good full 2 turns of scoring there. Another Archimandrite pick, just going after the Steelforged. That black 2 there on the bottom right represents the wounds remaining on the Hellbringer Drake. So I'm also down to 1 Steelforged here, and because he's got the Fallen Divinity nearby and the Praetorian Guards, he will score 3 points on that objective, end of turn 7. Fireforged now blasting into combat over there, or blasting one of the Kanephors and ripping them up, but they're going to be engaged before long, so they will be kind of stuck, unable to really affect much of the rest of the game. I've decided to reform the Hold Ballistae and run away. Reason for this is that he might run out of time to go after them, and they're worth 2 victory points for the unit, 2 for the character. And if I just run to the edge of the table, he just might not have enough time to come over there with the Fallen Divinity, and on like turn 10, I might be able to put Roots of Stone down and stop him from wiping me out, which will deny him 4 points. The thing that's really crucial here, by the way, guys, is that I'm way ahead on objective points. I got up to like 24 objective points while he was still on 4 to 6. He started swinging it back to closer to like 10 to 12 now that he's scoring here, and also killing my initiates, killing my character on the Drake. Each individual regiment and character is worth 2 each. So he sort of swung it back, but up until this point, I was really, really way ahead on those points, just so you know. So Steelforged just fighting the good fight, but he is going to be going under soon now that he's run out of spell support and doesn't really have the benefit of the tokens to auto-pass saves and heal him. So this would be turn 8 realistically, where the Sorcerer, the Steelshaper, and the Fireforged really want to go first. But this is how turn 8 would be starting if we play it out, which we're not going to. You can see here that the Legionnaires are going to be able to get past onto that zone after the Kanephors here kill them and then charge here, because what's going to happen is the Kanephors activate, they clash first to delete them, and then they charge these guys, getting them out of the way. The Legionnaires move on here. It's going to take him 1 turn to march towards it, and then on turn 9 and 10, he'll score 4 and then another 4. At the end of turn 7, he just picked up 3 points from this zone. He's about to delete this thing and that thing, so he's going to get in turn 9... so in turn 8, he's getting another 3, turn 9, another 3, turn 10, another 3. So with 8 there and another 9 there, that's like 17 points. So that is why I just literally had to concede here. You can see him charging into the Fireforged, and that is just literally it. The Drake's dead. This thing's going to die shortly afterwards. These guys are running away to the edge of the table, and everything's just turning around. So now is the time we're going to start talking about this matchup, talking about game balance, the recent patch, things about Dweghom, things about Old Dominion. So buckle in, the bat rep's over. If you enjoyed the back rep, that's the only reason you're here, you can go. What I want to say is that my opponent, Matt, who I play against very regularly, you've seen a lot of bat reps between me and him on my channel, where I played 100 Kingdoms against his Old Dominion, up until a couple of months ago, where a lot of those games were really, really close. It came down to like turn 10, you've got like 2 Ashen Dawn versus 1 Bone Golem over here, and like a small unit of Knights over here. And those games were exceedingly close. And what was happening in them is that in turns 1, 2, and 3, I was raking in a lot of points with medium characters and light regiments scoring. And then I'd sort of be bullying them a little bit in turns 3 and 4. But then the game would turn around, and then by turn 6 and 7, the Old Dominion are getting up to tier 3, overpowering me, bringing the arm wrestle back the other way. And I would usually win right at the end because he couldn't quite score enough points to catch up, although it was close. And sometimes he did win. But mostly it was me winning there by a very small margin. But I would never be in a position where I was out, like behind, like ahead on material, I should say, at that point in the game. In the previous patch, if any game had gone on to turn like 11, 12, you know, it's basically an auto loss against Old Dominion because they're the late game faction. So what then has changed is in the new patch, they've taken away the ability for medium characters to go into light regiments and score. That can't be done anymore unless you use special Nord abilities or Spies abilities, but you've got to, you know, use resources for that. Most factions like Wadrone, 100 Kingdoms, etc. just can't really do that anymore. So you've got to start scoring from turn 2. But when you do come on in turn 2, you've got those Legionnaires with the Optio, with the extra standard bearer that's free now. The Legionnaires are a whole lot cheaper. They can march 16, 17 inches onto the board and score basically at the same time you do. And then if you're trying to bully them with your very powerful light units and killing them, you're getting them to tier 2 very, very quickly. If you're ignoring them, you know, they may have that Dark Cenotaph. They may just, you know, keep level with you and score, making it way easier for them to score later on in the game. The Legionnaires, it's very hard to stop them from like clinching those points because they've got that Memories of Vulnerability, which they didn't have before. They are now able to count the command stand as 2 additional stands, which is a very useful ability in the early game. For some reason, Legionnaires are cheaper now. Previously, Men-at-Arms were the best, most efficient thing in the game at 105 points for just camping a zone. But the Legionnaires do that for 100 points, unless you pay for the Optio. And they are more resilient because they don't take resolve checks. Yes, they are defense 2 effectively, whereas the Men-at-Arms are only 3. But when you factor in resolve checks, you know, I'd prefer to have Legionnaires, to be honest with you. So they are very, very cost effective. At the same time, units like Bone Golems, Kanephors haven't received the nerf. The Fallen Divinity's gotten better. The Archimandrite now finds it a little bit easier to sort of just heal things like Bone Golems. And on top of all of that, all of the Old Dominion units now get +1 to come onto the board inexplicably. Like, you know, I can't see why they really needed that, but they do have that now. And on top of that, if that wasn't like bad enough, you now have the Strategos bringing in a unit of Praetorian Guards with Aura of Death 4 in every list pretty much on turn 1. So what Parabellum have done in my opinion is they've looked at Old Dominion in the previous patch and gone, okay, the faction's a bit weak, they need a bit of a boost, they're not really placing very well in tournaments, They're sort of low tier unit. They need a little bit of a boost, and the top factions need a little bit of a tweak down. So you're seeing like 100 Kingdoms having Ashen Dawn weakened a little bit. You're seeing Dweghom having the Sorcerer weakened a little bit. Spires losing a few things from their list. Wadroon getting nerfed into the ground. So at the same time that Old Dominion are getting massively overbuffed, the more powerful factions of the game have been tweaked down a little bit. Right? So take all of that into account. What's now happening is that when I'm playing against the same person who's playing Old Dominion, for the last 3 games, I'm conceding at turn 7, and it's not a matter of the game taking like a bad turn where suddenly the dice just go badly for me, or I make a big blunder resulting in that outcome. It's really like you reach turn 7, you come to the realization that you had lost as soon as you printed out your army list, because looking back through that game and the last game that I played and the game before that and the game before that, I think I've played about 4 games now. I haven't put them all up on my channel. They have been very, very one-sided games where I just there was nothing that I could have done when I look back retrospectively. Look, nothing's not the right word. There's always stuff you could do. Like looking at this particular game, I could have taken Magma School, for example, instead of Earth. Maybe that would have been better. I thought that Earth was actually clutch in this game. I thought it did really, really well, but Magma, maybe that would have done a bit more damage than I needed. My play with the Initiates, maybe I should have just kept that back towards my zone and just tanked for a while and made sure the Kanephors just like went in one at a time and roadblocked him and used the hold warriors on the other side of the table. Maybe I could have done that. Maybe there are other things that could have gone on my list. But if we go and look at the lists, I'm up against a suboptimal list. Like, this is not the best Fallen Divinity list you can play. He didn't need to be running what he ran. He could be running something like this, where he does have the Aura of Death Praetorian Guard, where he's got Bucephaloi, which are just going to make a mess of stuff like Steelforged. And, he can still have all of that going for him. And yet I was playing a weaker version of it, and I still got absolutely crushed. My dice rolls this game were better than his. Like, I had stuff survive, I had spells go off when they needed to, I won some clutch supremacy rolls, still not a chance. So when I go and build other lists, thinking, okay, what do I need to do to win, I can't really come up with very much at the moment. Now, I get it, guys. This is always sort of what you hear from somebody when they lose a tabletop war game. I see it all the time. Somebody plays a game, they lose, they go into the forums or the Discord or YouTube or wherever they go, and they start whining about game balance when realistically, it's not your list, it's you. There's more stuff you can do. I get it, and I accept that. Like, I'm totally open to the idea that I've got it completely wrong. Maybe Old Dominion are perfectly balanced. They're just like nice mid-tier. Parabellum, I've got them exactly where they need to. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. I'm quite keen to hear from you guys if you have any really awesome sort of ways to, suddenly beat Old Dominion, if you feel that that's the case. Or if you would like to play against me on Tabletop Simulator, I've got a bit of free time. I'll play Old Dominion, you play the faction that beats Old Dominion, and we'll test it out. But at the moment, it does appear to be, and I'm hearing this from other people who play Old Dominion competitively on Discord, that they have accidentally overtuned it. I think it's just an oversight. It's just a small mistake from Parabellum. They've nerfed everything else, and they've just like triple nerfed Old Dominion at the same time. So I'm expecting them to get dialed down. I just hope it doesn't take too long for that to happen. Final thought from me. I love Old Dominion. Like, they were one of the factions that I was going to go for. I might still collect them. Like, if they remain broken forever, I might have no choice. But I love the idea of playing an Exiliarch list with Pharangians and Bone Golems and Hierodeacon and whoever I need to take. I mean, I want to paint them and collect the models, so that may be an excuse for me to do that. But I'm also really enjoying 100 Kingdoms and Dweghom. So we're gonna keep playing it out. I'll keep doing the bat reps. But yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm really salty about it. I'm not really salty. I had a really enjoyable time, even though I lost that game. Even though it turned out that I really had no chance to begin with in that particular game. I'm very unlikely to sort of beat a serious Old Dominion list in the near future. Still had a good time. Still loving Conquest. And I think that this kind of thing can easily be tweaked properly. What I would do with Old Dominion personally is I would make it so that their faction ability is a bit like Spies in Old Dominion, 100 Kingdoms, where you choose one or the other ability. So you choose to either have a free Dark Power every turn when your Warlord's on the table, bring that caveat back, or you get +1 to your reinforcement rolls forever. Not both of them at the same time. If you have to choose one or the other, people won't automatically go for the same one every time. There'll actually be some thought. It'll be like the 100 Kingdoms one, where they're both kind of viable, and it will determine what kind of list you build around it. And I would go to Legionnaires and make their standard actually cost something, because it's a very useful thing, that standard on the Legionnaires. So make it 5-10 points, and then just leave it for a bit. You know, I don't think that's enough nerfing, but you don't want to sort of bring them back to where they were before. Just tweak them down a little bit. Give the other factions just a little bit of a tweak to their weaker units. And look, honestly, Old Dominion still needs some buffs on some units. I think the what do you call that unit that has the parry? The Athanatoi. The Athanatoi still need to be stronger, mind you. I think that, you know, there are some things out there that they need to do. They still need to fix the what do you call that? That walking mausoleum that hasn't even been released yet. They still need to do some stuff about that. The Moroi, for example, they need to be buffed as well. So we're not just saying, hey, Old Dominion are just way too powerful. There's just a few things that are overtuned at the moment, and I'm sure they'll address it. I just hope it doesn't take them forever to do that. So, hope you guys enjoyed this little rant and the bat rep, and I'll see you in the next one.